Call the city council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Nelson? Matt?
Yes.
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 Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to go right into the hearing. January 20th, 2015 meeting, the council established this as a date and time for the public hearing on the Martyrs Plymouth County Joint Urban Renewal Plan Amendment, and on February 3rd, they set this as the date and time for the public hearing. And related also to the TIF revenue sharing agreement with Plymouth County. Notices have been published, consultation section was held. The Mayor Pro Tem is opening the hearing and asks for any written or oral objections. If you've got any comments, you step to the podium, state your name and what your comments are, and we'll try to address them. Asking for the second time, any written or oral objections? Hearing none, I declare the hearing closed. Turn them back to the council.
I'd make a motion adopting resolution number 15-6 to approve urban renewal plan amendment for the Plymouth County Lamar's Highway 75 bypass urban renewal area.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Christie, would you call the roll, please?
Child?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Rex-Mickle?
Yes.
Yes.
Make a motion adopting resolution number 15-7 to approve a TIF revenue sharing agreement with Plymouth County, including tax increment payments in an amount not to exceed $9,615,000.
Second.
Rex,
Yes, sir.
one adjustment that has been made by John Danos on that TIF agreement is Exhibit A. You don't have a copy of it, I don't believe. The copy in your agenda shows the register fee being annual at $250. It turns out that that's $250 semi-annually because they make interest payments in December, principal and interest payments in June. So anyway, that $250 has to be shown on there twice as many times.
Okay.
Therefore, the last two columns get adjusted accordingly.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions with that?
So do we need to have another?
So what is-
2,500 bucks,
so-
right? 2,500 bucks up.
It'd be 12 times 250, yeah.
Okay, change the number to $9,617,500.
Oh,
There's
your
only
grand total is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, the total is fine,
Yeah,
okay.
because that's a not to exceed.
Okay.
That's a pretty generous number. I think Danos wanted it that way so that there was no glitches in
Okay.
finalizing the reimbursements.
Okay,
So original motion statements.
okay.
Anything else? So good.
Nope, that's all I
Okay,
have.
Christie?
Child?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Rex-Mickle?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
There's still only 10 not filled, right? Okay.
Yeah. There's 10 payments
Years.
left. There
There's
was
10,
there
yeah.
was originally 15. There's now 10 payments
Right.
left. Okay, we're done with the hearings. We'll go on to general discussion. At the top of the list on general discussion is Jason with Code of Ordinance changes. You only got a couple hours, Jason, so.
Yeah. All right. What I handed you is two additions to that original package you had. I know last council meeting I said that this would be the time that we would set a public hearing. But I got some clarification from Iowa Codification, who we've contracted to update our codes on the process that we need to go through. They suggested that we do not hold the public hearing until we have the actual printed document in our hands. So that printed document will have these changes in them unless you have changes you want made to these, but, and they won't print those until I let them know. So at some point, I'm gonna need probably an okay from the council to go ahead with these changes and have them printed, and I will let them know. And then I didn't get a time frame as to how long it takes them to print them. I can't imagine it'd take too long, but they'll print them and then ship us 25 copies. Once those copies are here, then we'll come back to the council and set the date for the public hearing. And then I will have, by tomorrow, I will have a copy of this at the front counter for anybody to come in and read through. If they have questions, they can come to me. I'll try to answer them. Probably won't give too good answers on the legislative changes. They can call Des Moines for those, but we don't really have a whole lot of control over those. But the city changes that are being made, I can try to explain those. The two, what I'm hoping you look over those two that I laid in front of you and get back to me with any comments you have on those. As far as the sidewalk issue that we talked about at the last council meeting. And then the second issue that came up was what do we want the police department to do for unpaid parking tickets? Right now, we have really nothing, and Stu can comment more, but we really have no authority right now to deal with those situations. So what I have before you is just my rendition, and I explained it on the top of where I got this from, but you can look that over and get back to me with any comments.
Jason, regarding the removal of snow, this probably isn't the spot to put it, but do we want to have something in the code somewhere that addresses the curb sidewalks? Are we going to allow them in the future, or if they put in a curb sidewalk,
Well,
they'd have to?
Well, they've always been, they can't just, the reason the existing ones are in, John, is somebody told them to put it there. We already have it in our standards that you can't, there's a certain place where the sidewalks go.
Okay.
And that's within 16 inches of the lot line is where that sidewalk is supposed to be. Anything that changes from that needs city permission.
Okay.
And then the other question on that, I know we were talking about exempting the ones that are at the back of curb, but now, when did this pop up with the 2 feet?
That came up, Delana, because I can think of North Lynn in particular. And I believe last council meeting, Merlin Shipper stood up here and used North Lynn as an example, that the street didn't get put in the center of the right-of-way. So what it did is it left, especially on the south side, it left a little gap where they have the back of the curb. Then some people have put rock in there, but there's a little gap before it actually gets to the sidewalk. But on the north side, the sidewalk's actually up there. And, we discussed, how far, you could go further, you could go less, but what is a reasonable distance to expect somebody to shovel that
Did you
stuff?
just say that 18 inches is the minimum required?
Off of the lot line, off of your front lot line, that sidewalk is supposed to be 16 inches off of that lot line towards the street side. So 16 inches off your lot line, start your 4-foot sidewalk, and then whatever is left for whatever your right-of-way you have, whether it's 60, 80, or 100. But, so that's a typical spot for the sidewalk, is the 16 inches off.
But that's off of lot line, not off of back of curb?
Off the lot line,
Yeah.
not of the street.
Okay.
I would suggest that we put it on for action item, next council meeting,
Jason,
to see if we're going to proceed with it, all of them.
But you say you want to have a final printed document
No, but we need to tell him to say the codification in the
Right.
printer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we can go with that, Rex, but like I said, I don't know how long it's gonna take for them to print them and get them here.
No, I know, but we gotta give you a yes or no
Yep.
in
I
a
would
council
imagine-
meeting that says all these things are okay or not.
I would imagine if we have 2 weeks before the next council meeting, and then 4 weeks before the actual public hearing happens, I would imagine they'd be printed and shipped to us by then.
But I'm saying.
But I can call them this afternoon and
Well,
find
I
out how
gue-
long
I
it
guess what I'm
takes.
saying is if we have any items, we should bring it up to you within the
Oh,
next
yeah.
2 weeks.
You're saying so this could be added before it's printed?
Well, and if you think it should be 18 versus 2 feet, we gotta get that done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
That's what I would suggest.
and keep in mind, I mean, this is, because we're doing the overall thing, these are getting put in there, but if there's anything that you feel you want to spend more time on, they can be pulled from this update and be handled separately too if you want.
Did we want to add swimming pools into our code that they require a building permit? Or is that somewhere different?
We're just going to start, I mean, we're just going to start requiring building permits.
Okay. Okay, but that's not a code issue that we, okay, all right, just asking.
The one I brought up last time was airport, and as you all know, Bolton and Mink was hired to do the master planning of the airport. And this is the document I was referring to last time. I did receive a copy of it. I haven't forwarded out to all of you. I was waiting for some comments, review comments, that is, from Simcoe. So the basic document here was created by Bolton and Mink. It's about 24 or 25 pages. So before I just sent them out, I wanted to make sure I was sending out the right document to you, all of you. And so I can do that in the next 2 weeks. This is really, would be replacing the airport ordinance that's currently in your code. To bring it completely up to date, in accordance with FAA standards, and in accordance with your local COG on what they feel for an airport ordinance, and also your consultant Bolton and Mink. So this is consistent, for those of you that sat on the advisory group when we did the master plan, this is consistent, as nearly as I can tell, of that planning document as well. So this will probably take a little bit more time for your review of this.
And that includes any changes or anything necessary with the change in approach with the water tower and all of that? Or is that not something actually spelled out in there?
It is.
It is.
You hit it right, nail right on the head. This has got vertical and horizontal height restrictions called out in it, just like your current code, but these are the new ones for the way the airport would be run in the future.
And west approach only.
Yes.
And you're assuming we're knowledgeable enough to read that and figure that out?
Well, some of that,
Test.
you need to rely on your consultant Bolton and Mink,
That's what I'm gonna do.
staff, myself and Jason and others.
But I do gotta get everybody to sign off before we vote on it, for sure.
Yeah.
We gotta get Simcoe, we gotta get Bolton and Mink, we gotta get you.
Earl.
Earl, and everybody to
Yes.
sign off.
Simcoe.
Yep, because that needs to be done.
So although I don't have copies for you today, I will try to expedite with Simcoe their comments regarding this document. And if it's verbatim, then I can send it out to you via email fairly soon.
Should we have a review of it by the airport committee first also, or not?
That would be good too, John. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, I'd say.
I got a follow-up question for you, Jason. Do we have, like, fences in our code?
Yes.
And sheds in our code and garages in our code? Then why aren't we putting swimming pools in our code written?
It's never been considered a structure.
Well, we ran into it with Vaughn earlier this year, and I think that was a serious enough reason to put swimming pools in the code. And they need a building permit to put one in. Because there's a case in point where it's 3 foot where it shouldn't be.
Clark, all the rules for swimming pools are already in an international building code. It's already in there. But as the city of Lamar's, in this jurisdiction, we can determine what we're going to make people get permits for. As far as I know, we've never issued a building permit for a swimming pool. So I just carried on that thing. And to my understanding, you maybe get, like I said, I get calls, 1 or 2 a year, of somebody saying, you know, I want to put in a pool. Most of the time, they're the above-ground ones, but occasionally somebody calls me for the in-ground ones. We don't issue a permit, but we, you know, we still do the inspection and stuff, but people don't pay a fee and get a building permit.
Okay.
It just so happens that the one that you brought up wasn't noticed until it was already in the ground.
Yeah, and I'm not even, you know, I'm not trying, I'm just wondering if, and it is a question, it's not a suggestion we do, should we put it to where?
Well, okay, well, I plan on it, after you brought it up.
Okay, but it doesn't need to be in the code.
Yeah.
Good
I
enough.
don't think it doesn't need to be, I don't think it needs to be spelled in there. It can be something that's in the building permit packet, that's at the front desk.
Okay.
I have it.
Good enough.
And, you know, just letting people know that from now on, you need to get a permit for an in-ground swimming pool.
Good enough. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we're continuing with open general discussion.
One more code thing that I've approached Jason about that we're going to probably work on and come to you with is the state's really pushing to allow fireworks. So as a city, we're going to have to decide if we're going to be more stringent than what the state allows or not. I think we really need to visit, as we have with recreational fire pits and things like that, if we're going to have some rules as far as the hours you can shoot fireworks, wind speed, how close to a building, those sort of things, because we already take a number of complaints now, and the saving thing has always been, those are illegal, you're done. We're not going to have that option the way it's looking. So, excuse me, one more thing that the state has pawned off on us locals to deal with in our communities, as Rex always says, one more thing we have to deal with. So we're going to be talking about that, and we'll probably be bringing something forward to you. Of course, we'll have to go through Joe and make sure that we get it worded just right, but I can see this being an issue at 3 o'clock in the morning when your neighbor's firing off bottle rockets next door and they're 5 feet from your house. And right now, we've had the opportunity, as I said, to say, hey, those are illegal, you're done, or you're going to be cited, and we're taking your fireworks. We're not going to have that option maybe. So that's something else. We've been starting to look at other cities where fireworks are allowed in South Dakota and things like that, and what rules they have. Not totally reinventing the wheel, but we'll be going over those things for you too. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else for general discussion that's not on the agenda? We'll continue. Thumbs up board, John?
Nothing today.
Clark?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I don't have anything. Anybody over there? Okay, pass. We're going to go right to the consent items. Approval of the February 3rd regular minutes. The list of bills for the period ending 2/13/15. And the monthly financial statement for January.
Motion approving consent items 1 through 3.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're on to funding recommendations of CVP Board. Let me get there. At its February 3rd meeting, the council acknowledged the receipts of the CVP Advisory Board recommendations for fiscal year 16 funding a project. Everybody's seen the information that we supplied. We have a good committee, or a great committee, and we have very active members. And we came up with what we think is some very worthwhile projects for the hotel motel tax to get used for. that hopefully will then provide more hotel motel tax. So do I have any questions?
Motion approving the Convention and Visitor Bureau Advisory Board's recommendations for FY16 project funding in the amount of $32,479.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're on to engineering for various capital projects 2015. I'm going to let Scott go through this.
Amendment number 1 to the master contract that you approved, both the amendment as well as the master got approved last council meeting. If you recall, that was for Crescent Ridge. What you have before you today is amendments 2 through 7 inclusive. And the first one, number 2, is Business 75 water main. This came out of committee, so I don't think the full council necessarily heard all the detail, but the committee did approve the water committee, or excuse me, your water staff's request to replace the 4-inch water main from 4th Street North to 4th Street South on Business 75. Believe it or not, to this day, and we bought the water system in 1988, that still has a 4-inch water main. 4-inch is no longer meets code, neither 10 state standards, EPA codes, ISO codes, or DNR codes relative to furnishing water to fire hydrants. It's perfectly fine for furnishing water to homes and businesses. So that has been a long-standing project on the schedule over all these years, just never had surfaced to the top. The committee felt that it needs to be at the top of the list, or at least near the top. We've had a slug of water main breaks along that route. Most of those were in the first 2 blocks north of Highway 3, so from Subway down to the motor inn, yes. And I think there alone was like 6 different water breaks over a 4 or 5 year period. So it's just long overdue. It's one of the older mains in all of Lamar's. So that's the number 1. That is in an urban renewal district, so I would propose that we use TIF, and so did the committee. Go ahead.
One question now, so city staff is going to specify, be working with Gail and Dave regarding exact location of all the hydrants that we will need, the valving for the shutting off mains and that type of thing, the taps.
Yes, my office, Gail's office, and Dave's office will all be involved with picking the options for all of what you spoke of, plus some other things, and that is, or the largest of which, I've asked this, and it shows up in that amendment, that there'd be at least a minimum of 2 options preliminarily proposed. And right now, for the most part, the 4-inch is on favoring the west side of the right-of-way. Still underneath the slab, but it's favoring the west side. So one idea would be to put the new main outside the paving, west side. Second idea would be to put the main outside the paving on the east side. And whether that jumps back and forth, I don't know at this stage. That's for Slofelts to help us figure out. And a CyberNet model would be run to make sure that we figure it out from a flow standpoint and a pressure standpoint, both of which go to your question relative to fire protection. So yes.
And east side probably will have less obstructions regarding driveways and et cetera.
It's kind of just on a preliminary view, I'm looking at it that way too. It might be less over there than on the west side. And the ease of installing it, it could probably be installed with the old one being in service while the new one's being installed, and then the crossover would be the service lines themselves. So the intent would be to abandon in place and never use again the 4-inch. Number 3 is 12th Street replacement. We talked about this briefly last time because of the STP applications that we want to submit yet this month. And we mentioned that maybe the first 2 blocks should be done locally because we're considering FY19 in those STP apps. And so if we don't get funded, it's going to be FY20 or beyond. And I don't think we can truly wait that long for that 2 blocks. We've had those bump signs put up, 3 maybe out of the last 5 years. And that bump, I did check, that was a little bit of a debate last time. It is just west of 2nd. Just west of 2nd.
So it's in the 2 blocks.
It's within the 2 blocks that we want to completely remove and replace.
On that, Scott, under project description, it indicates that it includes removal and replacement of existing sidewalks, but there is a stretch in there where we need new sidewalks. That's not included in this bid. So where does that engineering fall in, since that is the roadside or carriage walks that we've been discussing?
That would come as a result of replacing the road. So if we stay with the detention basin, I assume we're going to, next to the fire station number 2, and then the ground adjacent to the first home on Central is so low, I think the carriage walk is the only option.
But
So-
that's not, none of that's included in this.
Well, I mean, the engineering for the street is included here. None of this includes construction, so that would come out in the wash when we bid it.
Okay.
Are we talking maybe a little bridge replacement there, or?
The bridge is only on the walk, south side only. I did mention to you, I believe, that we had a little bit of a structural problem with the box culvert that goes underneath the street. And so a full inspection will be part of this procedure
Okay.
of that box culvert to see what we need to do and whether or not we need to replace it. We repaired it here about 4 years ago because a hole developed right through the street. And so we had to repair it at that point.
Is there any widening in that? I mean, are we gonna try to get it a little wider, or is it gonna be exactly the same, pretty much 12?
I'm presuming the same width. It's 31 feet, which is like all the rest of our streets.
And I know it seems as though I'm totally outvoted here, but I'll say it again, can we exempt those 2 blocks for a sidewalk? I think we're actually making it more dangerous for kids to walk there. I really, 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 and I see one of this is an alley access somewhere at fire station number 2. Can we incorporate a sidewalk we're actually making kids more dangerous in that 2 blocks. I've said it 10 times. I really wish we'd get off the sidewalk there.
Nope.
It's just.
You need to convince at least 2 more of your
Because you're
colleagues.
me.
But, I mean, you have the authority to exempt, to answer your question, but it takes 3 out of 5.
It might be,
Say nothing at this stage.
it might be easier to have the discussion when we have money in front of us.
Right,
How much
okay,
it's gonna
okay.
cost.
Well, I just,
Yeah. And that'll come out after this engineering is done.
That'll be
Let's skip down to number 5, since Clark brought that up. Fire station number 2, alley access. What we're talking about there is when fire station number 2 did get built, there was some at least marginal talk about having access to the north. If you picture that, if I can put a picture in your mind, there is a space to the east of the tennis courts. Without ruining the tennis courts, there is a space there. It's not wide enough for a 31-foot wide street by any means, but it would be wide enough for the equivalent of an alley. So somewhere in the 18, 20-foot range. And Dave Shipper and I have talked about this to a lesser degree several years ago. I talked to Bill Rosacker about it, that if something catastrophic were to happen on 12th, how would you get in and out of fire station number 2? Because at that point, then it would be pretty much no access. And so this would provide a secondary access to fire station 2, and it might be a project that would be worthy of getting accomplished prior to the replacement of 12th Street. And John and I talked about it just ahead of this meeting, that maybe we could do that first, so that we would have that access to Fire Station 2, both for fire and ambulance, while we're messing with things out in the street.
Makes total sense.
So,
And it was more than talk. We had it on the agenda and we had it on the plan originally, but we cut it out because of budgetary reasons.
I believe the cost of the facility got a little higher than what was expected in the year that we built that, and it never happened.
But it's more than talk and it should happen.
Makes total sense.
Now, that parking area for the apartments,
Yeah.
is that private property up to the edge of where they have it asphalted or concreted, whatever it is?
Nominally, yes. I mean, I don't know specifically if it's 1 foot this way or that way, but essentially your statement
So
is
you're
correct.
talking about redoing the hill that's like this?
Yep.
Okay.
The alley profile would look that there would be a small retaining wall on the west side so that you could build an alley, and there'd be a small retaining wall on the east side so that the Messelheisers could enjoy their property like they currently do.
And you're talking, Scott, this would not go through the Second Street intersection, correct? This project would be to the west of it?
On the west side of it?
Yes.
That's true. I would stop it on the west return of that particular intersection. That way, access to the south, both to the swimming pool and that neighborhood, and access to the north, which is Convention and Y, would be allowed even during construction. Then going back up to 4, Key Avenue pavement. This is in the budget for wastewater to pave the first 550 feet of Key Avenue. Key Avenue is the new road that goes to the new wastewater treatment plant, but only the first 550 feet. That's from Highway 3 to approximately the north edge of that adjacent Farmers Grove, just to give you a visual. Number 6 is Lincoln Street widening. This would be done not necessarily with the intention of building it in 15, doing a little checking with Hy-Vee. I'm not 100% confident that Hy-Vee will start their project in 15. If they don't start, we wouldn't need to start. However, this would in fact design the widening for that left turning movements into the proposed facility, and with all the nuances that come with that design, we would flush those out and be able to address them and bring them to your attention. And then finally, number 7 is Northland Drive. You've seen that, we've talked about it, and this is a small dollar amount just to help stake that once it's tore out. So this is primarily staking.
I was wondering about, what the cost on that was, simply because it's an existing street, but you just explained that. With the Hy-Vee, the whole street there, and this might sound like I hit my head on something today, but has there ever been any thought about maybe trying to vacate and bring all the traffic in from the rear side, from the, what would be the east side, so that the two intersections don't even become more congested, which I'm talking the Dairy Queen and the existing Hy-Vee intersections. If traffic wasn't coming at them from a new Hy-Vee store and coming in around to them, if it would not look at future congestion there favorably. I don't know. It's just a question.
Probably that, to answer that question, would probably take a traffic engineering study of an area, I think is what you're kind of proposing. We're going to have a spot traffic study of the intersection by Dairy Queen, that 5-legged intersection. We'll have a spot analysis there, but we didn't intend to go farther south.
Okay, well, I was just, okay.
Yeah.
Other questions for Scott? Do I have a motion? Okay, I make a motion approving amendments 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a master agreement for engineering and surveying services with Schofield Engineering, Inc.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We'll move on to the engineering for water and sewer along 27th Street Southwest. JEO Engineering Consultants has proposed to provide the construction phase services for water and sewer along 27th Street Southwest. JEO had previously, 2013, designed and prepared specific plans for said project, and since no business located there, the city held off on the utility construction. Now the developments are being proposed on Lot 3 and 4, Lamar's Industrial Park, 3rd Edition, which is along 27th Street, and it will necessitate water and sewer along with other utilities. Therefore, utility meetings conducted by LBIC was coordinated with all utilities, City, Frontier, Premier, Northwest REC, and Mid-American Energy. Have questions for Scott or anybody on engineering agreement?
Motion approving engineering agreement with JEO Engineering Consultants for construction phase services of water and sewer extensions along 27th Street Southwest.
Second.
Question, who is JEO?
Well, the individual we deal with is Jerry Ripley. JEO, however, has headquarters in Des Moines and Omaha. They have a pilot office in South Sioux as the closest to us. Yet Jerry Ripley lives in Lamar's. So he did the RISE project on 27th. That's why he also did the utility work on the plans and specifications for 27th.
So it's a continuation, okay, I mean, that's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Okay,
He's been here before, we've given him a hard time before. He will get a hard time on this one.
You have, yes. Yep.
the name sounds familiar,
Yeah.
actually.
All those in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You know, so they have a bunch of agreements, because then the mayor pro tem's got to sign all these things when Dick's gone. So Christie comes over to my office every day. That's just a comment, sorry, editorial.
They wouldn't get you a stamp.
See, I don't want to stamp that. Not that important. CDBG, Main Street, Lamar's facade rehabilitation project. Attached is a copy of the A1A document B108 standard form agreement between the city and Frank's Design Group for CDBG facade project. That's exactly what it says. I swear to God, that's what it says. And this is what we got.
And what that means
We
is,
got like 25 pages, and it's not it's a boilerplate agreement. It's not one that we can really change, modify, or whatever. It's just the way it is, according to CDBG rules,
yep.
right? But we can have questions. You got any questions? Anybody?
You know, it's tough to read through all of this, and we're relying on staff on this one. But I see you changed the not to exceed to 30,000. Is that in agreement with the other party, or are you
No,
gonna negotiate that, or?
No, they're not in agreement. But it still represents an estimate, because no one can determine 100% what's it going to take during construction. Depends on the contractor, depends on weather, depends on the speed in which the work gets done. There is 29 projects here, but I have told Pete that I really believe that he needs to come up at critical times only and not be hovering around those construction sites.
So Frank's is gonna spend a lot of time with the building owners, but as I'm reading this, we are the ultimate responder from the other side of this agreement, correct?
Right.
So does that mean we have to work with the building owners, or they're gonna represent? In other words, basically, they'll continue to do the work, and whatever they don't get resolved between the building owners and the Franks is what comes through the city?
Well, let me state it this way. The building owners have already have significant input to what's on plan,
Right.
and that's what got bid. So now the contractor needs to build it the way it's on the plans or by official change order. So the only time I see that Pete Frank should be involved is coming up to do an overview of each of those 29 projects, and are they going to follow the plans the way it is verbatim, or has the plans changed slightly? So they make that decision in cooperation with the property owner and city. And so that's why I don't think it should take the full amount that they had originally proposed. And again, it's an estimate, both on my part as well as his part. He doesn't know, and I don't know for sure. I'd rather err on the leaner side and deal with it if we start bucking that top.
And time is of the essence to get these completed.
Yeah, and so, yeah, we don't need them just hibernating here. We just need work done at this point, so.
And also, we've been trying to protect engineering fees and protect them, and sometimes yell about them. And I think it's better, like Scott says, to start at the 30, and if we go a little bit over, we go a little bit over, but at least this way, they'll know what the goal is we're shooting for.
Right.
Motion approving an agreement with Frank's Design Group Phase 3 Construction Phase Services, total not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're moving on to the proposed budget. The proposed budget for fiscal year ended 16 is used at a levy rate of $13.50. That's the same as was used in prior year. It shows a total revenue of $20,700,000. That number is so big because it has to include the hospital revenue and expenses. This proposal was a result of many committee, board meetings, some contentious, some otherwise. And we're pretty happy where we are. We're not going to raise the mill levy, and therefore taxes for our residents are not going to go up significantly. Anything you got? Anybody got comments on this? So we got to have a public hearing at the next meeting.
Taxes for residents are not going to go up based on anything the city does.
Yeah, and I said not significantly. What happens is the rollback changes by 1%, so you're going to have about a 1% increase in your homeowner taxes. But that's due to some 3 people in a room in Des Moines deciding that your rollback changed. It's not even legislative, I don't think. It's just a group.
I make a motion accepting the proposed 2015-16 annual budget at a mill levy of 13.5 and establishing March 3, 2015 at 12 p.m. as the date and time for public hearing regarding adoption of the fiscal year 2015-16 budget.
Second.
Any more comments? All those in favor of the hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to go right into the discussion items. Let's do it in reverse. Let's start having a meeting, committee. Wastewater. Nope. We don't have wastewater. Okay, we're done. Water. Water. Hurry up, Gail. Otherwise, you're done too.
That's all right, it won't take much longer. You've had time to look at it. That's pretty standard from year after year. You'll just notice and stuff, as the first of the year and stuff, there has been some reassigning and stuff, so I just did highlight the retirement of Terry and the maintenance position for Alice. Information of interest, it's from year to year. There was a little bit less pumpage this last year. You can go down the list of stuff there, difference. We're still doing really well, I believe, with the 4.9% difference in non-accountability. The average is anywhere from 7 to 15, so we've been keeping underneath that. The second page is just, what we've been accomplishing during the year. I do have to talked to Dennis Morris and stuff about this last Friday. He called me and asked me about water main breaks. And I said, no, so far this year we didn't have any. Knock on wood, but all I had was Formica, and Friday right away, 2 hours after we talked, we had a main break. So, I am putting some of that on there, so. Otherwise, it's pretty much straightforward.
That is so typical.
So,
That is so typical.
the only thing and stuff that I did forget and stuff after everything was going on and stuff is, we are still looking at a fill station that has not really been budgeted for. I think we can probably get it through with some of the other things anyway, and that should help out with, have to thank the police department because they do monitor that for us. They do go in and get the key to get that taken care of. I know in the future, they're looking at moving and stuff, so we won't have the monitor, be able to monitor it and stuff, in that part, so that's another reason for the fill station. It does take a lot of time. Every year we do have to work on the hydrant just because not everybody knows how to, just because we give them the availability to it. Every year we work on that hydrant, replace it or repair it, as long with other ones too. So just an acknowledgement of that if you do hear some things and stuff that city staff is still looking at. Hopefully a credit card style out there on 18th Street somewhere, by the new street department. So if you have any other questions and stuff,
How about the water meters, we all done replacing them?
We're done with there's 5 meters in town that have not been replaced. These individuals, 3 of the individuals are still waiting for their water lines to be replaced this spring. This spring I will be sending them a letter saying, it was last year too that they got a letter, so hopefully they get those done because their shut-offs and stuff do not work. And their curb boxes don't work and stuff, so they are in the spring getting new service lines to get that taken care of, so then we can get in to replace them.
Okay.
So
We got a 4.9 unaccountable. What did you tell me a year ago that New York's is? You told
they're
us
about 50%.
about 50%.
Yeah,
That's
that they
incredible.
lose.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else for Gail? Thank you very much, Gail. Appreciate the work.
There's so many leaks underneath the city. He says there's so many leaks that.
Public Library.
I have the annual report here. Our annual year runs from June to July, so this would be the one that would have finished in June of 2014, which Sue Croce was the director for a majority of that. I came on board June 9th, so that's why her name appears on that report. It is, I think, just a snapshot of what we do. It's only, in many ways it's just numbers, but it does give you an idea of how we stay busy and active over there. We have in our collection something close to 40,000 items, physical items, that's not our electronic items. And so I think a lot of times people think, oh, it's the libraries, people are sitting around and reading, but at any one time we like to know where each and every one of those items are. And we send those out and hope they come back, and if they're not back, we have to track them down. We like to put them in the right spot when they're back, so it's kind of like a fairly sophisticated inventory system. I think if, you had a car parts store and you wanted to know where the spark plugs were, and you went over and there were radiator hoses, your customers would not be happy. And so that's one of the analogies I like to explain for a library, that it takes a fair amount of computer work and people work to make sure things are where they are and the services are getting to the people that need them. There are, I think one thing I would like to point out on the back page when it talks about library patrons, it's fairly typical for most libraries to say their active patrons are within the last 3 years of having a registered library card. Something Sue set up was that our cards expire actually every year, which based on how people, the demographics of the day, that's very good because people's phone numbers, it used to be you had your phone number for 20, 25 years. that is not the case. People are more mobile, so they do have a new address, but it's really the phone numbers that we see that change a lot. So our database is set up that people will expire within 1 year. Now, they may hang on there if they've got a fine or a lost book. We could keep them on the system, but when we look at these numbers and we say active library cards, that is as of January 2014. This is how many people had been in the library in that year and had an active card. So it's a number that when I look at it and I think, if people realize that's not how many times a person came in, that's how many people have an active library card. And non-Lamar's residents, that's over 1,000 people that have come to our library and have kept their card active. And so when you look at a city and you want to have an active main street and you want to bring people and traffic to your main street, I see the library is very crucial in that. And so we try to have things that meet the needs of what people are looking for. We try to have them reasons that they are repeat customers, not that they just come once or twice, but they come frequently. And so that's one of our missions.
Questions? Any questions?
Thanks, Shirley.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're going to go to the police.
I'm just going to hit the high spots. We'll just go through page by page. Your first page is the list of the people on your police department. The only change we had there, we had the addition of Rebecca Adams as now our police secretary after Mary Jo Steckelberg retired. If you go to the page complaints investigated by officers, these are investigations that officers are doing. I'm just going to kind of hit the high spots here. Most of those numbers are real similar to years past. The number that is down is burglaries. That was at 61 in previous years. And the number of other complaints, which is just kind of a catch-all for everything, that was up from 243 in the previous year. The rest of the numbers are real similar for 2013. Calls for service on the next page, we're seeing an increase in those. Part of that is because part of calls for service is the additional parking tickets that are written. So you'll see that. The parking tickets are up a little bit, like 1,200. So the other things that are also up is assisting other agencies. That's up from 187. Assisting fire and ambulance is also up from 546. And civil disputes are up, miscellaneous is up, and building checks are up. So what a building check is somebody's burglar alarm is going off, and we're responding to that, and we're checking on that. That was 604 compared to 277 the previous year. If you go to citations, that's pretty self-explanatory. Warnings, citations, and parking. And parking, as you can see at the bottom there, is a significant increase because of the policy on enforcement every night. Although I think it's working well, I'd defer to the street department guys, when they're moving snow. So, accidents, interesting. We had the exact same number of property damage accidents 2 years in a row, which I thought was kind of interesting. And only one more personal injury accident and 0 fatalities, which is a good thing. Arrests are down just a little bit. Of note, the OWI drunk driving arrests are up from 48 the previous year, and the burglary arrests are down from 25 the previous year. So those are two of the ones that are significant there. Everything else is pretty much within the numbers of previous years. Juvenile charges, pretty much the same as in the past years. The two things to note here that are significantly different are the burglary and theft. We had 51 charges the previous year and 5 in 14. And runaways are up 10 over 2. And
just being this far into this year, that runaway statistic will be much higher again when I'm here next year, because we've done that many plus already. So, have a couple kids that don't like to stay home. So. And then a little snapshot, this is real generic, of the training that the department did in the calendar year 2014, and the grants that we're taking in 2014 also. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Ambulance, Bill.
I'll be doing the same thing Stu did, just hitting the highlights. I think you've got my report. One side note, 2015, we're starting our 40th year serving the Lamar's community with ambulance services, so, and no, I was not at the beginning of this, so.
You don't want a party?
We may have a party come EMS week.
All right, good idea.
Currently, we have 26 crew members. We're down a net of 2. We lost three individuals this year, 2 to relocation, 1 to retirement. We added an RN exception. Then we have 1 individual who is an EMT right now, and he's in the middle class, going to become a paramedic, and we'll get to use his services hopefully after June of this year. Our providers can fall into 2 different categories. One's basic life support, the other one's advanced life support. For the first time since I've been around, we've hit the pinnacle where half of our crew members can provide advanced life support, which does a couple things. One, it provides more relief as far as time for being on call and stuff like that. And the other thing is, for a community this size, especially with a volunteer service, that's amazing to be able to have half the people provide advanced life support. A couple statistics, we were dispatched 913 times this year. We either assessed, treated, and transported 933 patients. This is down about 9 calls from last year. I did put in for the first time this year a payer mix that basically drives the income. This year, 50% roughly of our calls were Medicare calls, and about 25% were Blue Cross Blue Shield, so 75% fell in that category. The revenues we generated basically paid for 95% of our budgeted items, so basically the users of the service paid for the service for the most part. One thing I did point out, in the end of 2013, we purchased a LifePak 15, which we use basically on every call. One thing this machine does, and we did get a $10,000 grant with that, and then you guys provided the other $15,000. But if we feel someone's having a STEMI, or basically it's the big one, the heart attack, that can be transmitted to area hospitals, Sioux Falls, Sioux City, and also Floyd Valley. We used that 51 times this year, so we can transmit from the scene to the hospital. What that basically does is allow the hospital to prepare for what we're bringing in, plus also they can contact us and give us direction on where to go. Our continuous quality improvement basically is being followed. Under accomplishments, the only thing I was going to cite was Iowa Department of Public Health came in and did basically an inspection or on-site, and they found 2 deficiencies which were minor, resolved on the visit, and we were authorized for another 3 years. There's no other questions?
Which is as long as you can get.
What's that?
That's as long as you
Yeah,
can
that's
get.
as long as-
That's the maximum recertification
Correct.
period that is allowed.
Correct.
So we've got to say thank you to Bill and all the people that work there. And I think I was remiss, and Dave's bunch too. We've got some tremendous volunteers on the fire and the ambulance that we don't thank them enough for what they're doing for this town. That's tremendous.
The volunteers save the city a tremendous amount of money. We have to
Yeah.
do this on a full-time basis.
We hardly could
wouldn't
afford
like
it.
me.
Yeah, we couldn't hardly afford it.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, better late than never wastewater?
Gotta get a raise so I can buy a new watch or something, huh? We'll just touch on the loadings starting out here. We had 673 million gallons of raw wastewater come through. That's up just a little bit from the year before. We're down on CBOD, but we're still at a 98% removal. Not much of a difference from the year before. The TSS removal, we're down just a little bit on loading, not much, but we're still at a 98% removal on that at the old facility. The new 3 West facility, we treated 342 million gallons of water since July, and we're running about a 99% efficiency on removing CBOD, and that's a pretty stout stuff that's coming out there from the plants. The TSS wasn't quite as effective, but 96 isn't bad. We're still working out the bugs with the electronics and everything, trying to get it all working the way we want it to. I think we're starting to dial it in. So the flow breakdown.
Ron, can I?
Yes.
Just the order of magnitude on his statement that's pretty stout at the new treatment plant. That can be found at the top of those 2 pages respectively. The pounds per day of CBOD at the plant is 5,109 pounds per day on a plant that is capable of 600,000 gallons a day versus 11,599 pounds per day on a plant that can do 1.8 million. So that just shows you the order of magnitude that they're treating the strength at the wastewater plant that was just newly built. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, no problem. I wish I could get you to do the whole thing for me. That'd be great. The citizens and small business in town did 58% of our capacity, and the rest went to Wells and Deans. We had 29 and 13 respectively. The biosolids on the next page, we're down just a little bit. That's going to take a little bit of dialing in. Last year we didn't, we were going to try and market, but with the new plant, we didn't get to operate the sludge removal decant the way we wanted to. And then cold came in on us real soon this fall, so we had to just get rid of it to make sure we had room. But now that we've got things dialed in and both plants working, we're starting to really get a lot better quality sludge this next year. I'm hoping to be able to start marketing again this next year. Like I said, we're down on generated amount. We're up on the amount of gallons we applied, but that could be just because trying to get through the construction phase, we were just looking for anywhere to get rid of it for the time being. Wells, their actual gallons are down this year, but if you look at the next one down, the pounds are way up. Not way up, but it's up significantly. The TSS was down. That was kind of puzzling to me that we'd be up on BOD but not down on TSS, but it just could be a difference in the way they prepare what they do. Dean's Foods, they were up in gallons. They were up in CBOD and up in TSS. But if I understand it right, they've closed another facility somewhere else and they've moved their production to Lamar's. And it's working out well for both of us. So Wells and Deans combined, totally we're down on flow, up on CBOD significantly, and down a little bit on TSS. Like I said, the plants are doing what they're supposed to. And the guys, we've got an excellent crew out there. They all know what they're doing really, really well. They make me look good, so I'm happy about that. The collection system, not a lot of change. We did some, we had the sewer calls were interesting. We only had 19 calls, and only 7 of those were city issues. The rest were personal. That's getting better every year. I'd like to think that's because we do a lot of preventive maintenance. And Scott and Bill allow me to have a little extra cash in there, that helps. We replaced a big section of an old pipe that was bothering all of us down by the old state shed and lined that whole line. I think we're getting better and better our infiltration every year, which is just clear water that's coming in from different places, bad lines, bad manholes. Every year we try to do a little more with that to not treat clear water, because it's just a waste to run through our plant with clear water. We did new lift station out there on 7th Avenue or K49 in advance of the new housing development out there. Installed another sewer line or extended the sewer line on 14th Avenue to pick up new housing there. Did new rings and covers on 12 manholes that my guys did this year. Rehabbed 118 vertical foot of manholes. That's where we go and we spray a cement fiberglass mixture on an old brick manhole to rehab it. Gives it another 20, 30 years life and eliminates the infiltration. Iowa One call, that kept us all pretty busy. There's a lot of calls this year. Improvement. We did a lot of work with contractors, engineers to try and finish up that plant this last year. A lot of physical time with guys out there checking, me and the guys. It's interesting getting that new plant up and running. But we gave tours in September. I think everybody was impressed with the tours. Most people don't get to see the wastewater plant very often, so I think we had a good turnout. And that's all I got, unless somebody's got some questions.
Any questions for Ron?
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron, and thanks everybody, especially for the work this year when you're getting that new plan online. That was a big deal. Scott, got something?
Just two items. We're in the new Public Works Department facility on 18th Street. And we're out of the one at the corner of 1st and 4th, northeast. And so we can now really gather the folks that are going to potentially use that in the future and determine exactly what space they're going to need, how they're going to need it, and whether we need to put up any intermediate walls between the various spaces. The February 2nd substantial completion date did get adhered to. We did a final inspection. It took a couple hours to go through the entire facility, and there was about a half a dozen of us that did that. And that went off without a hitch, pretty much. We had to wait for the fire sprinkler system to be calibrated a little bit, but other than that, that was the only major significant punch list item. There was some other minor ones throughout the building, and those are being taken care of as I speak. So the guys are going to take probably the next month and get things organized. You got to realize, I guess, that they were in their other facility since 1966. So I suppose just like at our own personal homes and businesses, they found things in the corners and the nooks and crevices that, quite frankly, they probably didn't know they had, and quite frankly, they probably won't be using in the future. So there will probably be some of that is put out on surplus and either given away or ask people to kind of bid on. So again,
Put it
50-year-old stuff.
Put it free on it, and just put it at the curb. Everybody picks that stuff up in town.
that would be my preference, actually, because a lot of which we didn't know we had until we kind of cleaned out all those crevices. So good news is that they are fully in the other facility, and they'll be operating out of that location. we're going to probably give them the full month, maybe a little bit better before we have some kind of grand opening out there. We will have some form of grand opening, but it'll probably be in a little bit better weather too, so people can walk around at their leisure and take a look at what we had done. So maybe April, somewhere in there. So if there is no questions there, you were also all given a copy of the map that's up on the dry erase. I would simply ask that you take the next couple of weeks yet. We won't put it on for any kind of action, but we will want your action on what do you want done and how. We will, at the next meeting, make recommendation to you as to how we intend to change our SOP, our standard of operation, on maintaining those areas that are maintained from a mowing standpoint, a grooming standpoint, herbicide, pesticide, spraying, fertilizer. It's a mouthful on everything that we do on all the green areas on that map, and the green areas add up to 424 acres. So it's a somewhat monumental task, and I think to make a material difference in that department, we really need to prioritize and make some hard decisions as to how we want that maintained in the future.
The
And
one
so-
thing that I didn't see on here, and maybe I was just missing it, but would it be possible to send out just the object ID number for pieces that are on here that are not city-owned? Like,
Yes.
for instance, 65 Railroad Northeast, that's not city-owned. So if you could just send out, I mean, that seems like a logical place to start,
Agreed.
so.
You mean like railroad right away?
Well, yeah, well, just anything on here that's not city-owned that we're currently
Maintaining
but,
Which is
so
half-
that we can just
half
go
of-
through and highlight those.
half of the list.
Not quite.
Probably won't be half, but it's a significant number in total acres, probably.
It's a big number.
But I think if you just reference, you don't have to send out a new map or anything, just reference those numbers, and then we can just go through and highlight on our own copy, that'd be great.
Yep, no problem. That's all I have.
Go on. You got something?
Do I have anything? No.
See, I went backwards,
I
and
know.
you didn't forget. See,
I
card?
thought maybe I had to read something, I
Card?
didn't see a closed session.
Bill?
I just want to thank everybody that helped with the budget, I appreciate it.
Okay.